y'all, it's Kim. So, there's people on X and other places that are basically saying that America's stolen land, but I've got evidence to the contrary. So, not only do you have like the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which basically took up most of the West, and then also you got the Louisiana Purchase, and I'm sure others, and they paid, I think, $15 million for this to France, and I believe Napoleon was in charge at the time. But anyway, this is the second video. I'm gonna put them in order, just one, two, three, or whatever, however many it takes, because there's 22 articles on this. But it says this is Article 4. So immediately after the exchange of ratifications of the present treaty, all castles, forts, territories, places, and possessions which have been taken or occupied by the forces of the United States during the present war within the limits of Mexican Republic, as about to be established by the following article, shall be definitely restored to the said republic, together with all the artillery, arms, apparatus of war, munitions, and other public property, which were in the said castles and forts when captured, and which shall remain there at the time when this treaty shall be duly ratified by the government of the Mexican Republic. To this end, immediately upon the signatures of this treaty, orders shall be dispatched to the American officers commanding such castles and forts, securing against the removal or destruction of any such artillery, arms, apparatus of war, munitions, or other public property. The city of Mexico, within the inner line of enrichment or entrenchments surrounding the said city, is comprehended in the above stipulation as regards the restoration of artillery, apparatus of war, and I don't know what that means. The final evacuation of the territory of the Mexican Republic by the force of the United States shall be completed in 3 months from the said exchange of ratifications, or sooner if possible. The Mexican government hereby engaging, as in the foregoing article, to use all means in its power for facilitating such evacuation and rendering it convenient to the troops, and for promoting a good understanding between them and the inhabitants. If, however, the ratification of this treaty by both parties should not take place in time to allow the embarkation of the troops of the United States to be completed before the commencement of the sickly season at the Mexican ports on the Gulf of Mexico, in such case, a friendly arrangement shall be entered into between the general in chief of the said troops and the Mexican government, whereby healthy and otherwise suitable places at a distance from the ports, not exceeding 30 leagues, shall be designated for the residence of such troops as may not yet have embarked until the return of the healthy season, and the space of time here referred to as comprehending the sickly season shall be understood to extend from the first day of May to the first day of November. All prisoners of war taken on either side, on land or sea, shall be restored as soon as practicable after the exchange of ratifications of this treaty. It is also agreed that if any Mexicans should now be held as captives by any savage tribe within the limits of the United States, as about to be established by the following article, the government of the said United States will exact the release of such captives and cause them to be restored to their country. Article 5, the boundary line between the two republics shall commence in the Gulf of Mexico, 3 leagues from land opposite the mouth of the Rio Grande, otherwise called Rio Bravo del Norte, or opposite the mouth of its deepest branch, if it shall have more than one branch emptying directly into the sea, from thence up the middle of that river, following the deepest channel where it has more than one, to the point where it strikes the southern boundary of New Mexico, thence westwardly along the whole southern boundary of New Mexico, which runs north of the town called Paso to its western termination, thence northward along the western line of New Mexico until it intersects the first branch of the Riva Gila or if it should not intersect any branch of that river, then to the point on the said line nearest to such branch, and thence in a direct line to the same. Thence down the middle of the said branch and the said river until it empties into the Rio Colorado, thence across the Rio Colorado, following the division line between Upper and Lower California to the Pacific Ocean. The southern and western limits of New Mexico mentioned in the article are those laid down in the map entitled Map of the United Mexican States, as organized and defined by various acts of the Congress of said republic and constructed according to the best authorities. Revised edition published in New York in 1847 by J. Disternell, of which map a copy is added to this treaty, bearing the signatures and seals of the undersigned plenipotentiaries. I couldn't repeat that earlier, couldn't say it. And in order to preclude all difficulty in tracing upon the ground the limits separating Upper from Lower California, it is agreed that the said limit shall consist of a straight line drawn from the middle of the Rio Gila, where it unites with the Colorado, to a point on the coast of the Pacific Ocean, distant 1 marine league, due south of the southernmost point of the port of San Diego, according to the plan of said port made in the year 1782 by Don Juan Pantoja, second sailing master of the Spanish fleet, and published at Madrid in the year 1802 in the Atlas to the voyage of the schooners Sutil and Mexicana, of which plan a copy is hereunto added, signed, and sealed by the respective plenipotentiaries. In order to designate the boundary line with due precision upon authoritative maps, and to establish upon the ground landmarks which shall show the limits of both republics as described in the present article, the two governments shall appoint a commissioner and a surveyor, who, before the expiration of 1 year from the date of the exchange of ratifications of this treaty, shall meet at the port of San Diego and proceed to run and mark the said boundaries in its whole course to the mouth of the Rio Bravo del Norte. They shall keep journals and make out plans of the operations, and the result agreed upon by them shall be deemed a part of this treaty and shall have the same force as if it were inserted therein. The two governments will amicably agree regarding what may be necessary to these persons and also to their respective escorts, should such be necessary. The boundary line established by this article shall be religiously respected by each of the two republics, and no change shall ever be made therein, except by the express and free consent of both nations, lawfully given by the general government of each in conformity with its own constitution. Article 6, the vessels and citizens of the United States shall in all times have a free and uninterrupted passage by the Gulf of California and by the river Colorado below its confluence with the Gila, to and from their possessions situated north of the boundary line defined in the preceding article, it being understood that this passage is to be by navigating the Gulf of California and the River Colorado, and not by land, without the express consent of the Mexican government. If by the examinations which may be made, it should be ascertained to be practicable and advantageous to construct a road, canal, or railway, which should in whole or in part run upon the River Gila or upon its right or its left bank within the space of 1 marine league from either margin of the river. The governments of both republics will form an agreement regarding its construction in order that it may serve equally for the use and advantage of both countries. Article 8, yeah, 8. The River Gila and the part, excuse me, sorry, that's 7. I was like, what? Okay, it's Article 7. The River Gila and the part of the Rio Bravo del Norte lying below the southern boundary of New Mexico being agreeably to the 5th article, divided in the middle between the two republics, the navigation of the Gila and the Bravo below said boundary shall be free and common to the vessels and citizens of both countries, and neither shall, without the consent of the other, construct any work that may impede or interrupt, in whole or in part, the exercise of this right, not even for the purpose of favoring new methods of navigation, nor shall any tax or contribution under any denomination or title be levied upon vessels or persons navigating the same, or upon merchandise or effects transported thereon, except in the case of landing upon one of their shores, if for the purpose of making the said rivers navigable, or for maintaining them in such state, it should be necessary or advantageous to establish any tax or contribution. This shall not be done with the consent of both governments. The stipulations contained in the present article shall not impair the territorial rights of either republic within its established limits. Article 8. Mexicans now established in territories previously belonging to Mexico and which remain for the future within the limits of the United States, as defined by the present treaty, shall be free to continue where they are or where they now reside, or to remove at any time to the Mexican Republic, retaining the property which they possess in the said territories or disposing thereof, and removing the proceeds wherever they please, without their being subjected on this account to any contribution, tax, or charge whatever. Those who shall prefer to remain in the said territories may either retain the title and rights of Mexican citizens or acquire those citizens of the United States, but they shall be under the obligation to make their election within 1 year from the date of the exchange of ratifications of this treaty, and those who shall remain in the said territories after the expiration of that year, without having declared their intention to retain the character of Mexicans, shall be considered to have elected to become citizens of the United States. In the said territories, property of every kind now belonging to Mexicans not established there shall be inviolably respected. The present owners, the heirs of these, and all Mexicans who may hereafter acquire said property by contract shall enjoy the respect to it, guarantees equally ample as if the same belonged to the citizens of the United States. Article 9, 9. The Mexicans who in the territories aforesaid shall preserve the character of citizens of the Mexican Republic conformably with what is stipulated in the preceding article shall be incorporated into the Union of the United States and be admitted at the proper time to be judged of by the Congress of the United States to the enjoyment of all the rights of citizens of the United States according to the principles of the Constitution, and in the meantime shall be maintained and protected in the free enjoyment of their liberty and property, and secured in the free exercise of their religion without restriction. Articles 10 has been stricken out. I wonder what was in there. Probably something we would consider racist or discriminatory now. Who knows? All right, so Article 11, and then I'll probably this one's pretty long. Let me go ahead and do this one, and then I'll stop it, and then we'll do another video. Okay, considering that a great part of the territories which by the present treaty are to be comprehended for the future within the limits of the United States is now occupied by savage tribes who will hereafter be under the exclusive control of the government of the United States, and whose incursions within the territory of Mexico would be prejudicial in the extreme, it is solemnly agreed that all such incursions shall be forcibly restrained by the government of the United States whensoever this may be necessary, and that when they cannot be prevented, they shall be punished by the said government, and satisfaction for the same shall be exacted all in the same way, and with equal diligence and energy, as if the same incursions were meditated or committed within its own territory against its own citizens. It shall not be lawful under any pretext whatever for any inhabitant of the United States to purchase or acquire any Mexican or any foreigner residing in Mexico who may have been captured by Indians inhabiting the territory of either the two republics, nor to purchase or acquire horses, mules, cattle, or property of any kind stolen within Mexican territory by such Indians. And in the event of any person or persons captured within Mexican territory by Indians being carried into the territory of the United States, the government of the latter engages and binds itself in the most solemn manner so soon as it shall know of such captives being within its territory, and shall be able so to do through the faithful exercise of its influence and power to rescue them and return them to their country, or deliver them to the agent or representative of Mexican government. The Mexican authorities will, as far as practicable, give the government of the United States notice of such captures, and its agent shall pay the expenses incurred in the maintenance and transmission of the rescued captives, who in the meantime shall be treated with the utmost hospitality by the American authorities at the place where they may be. But if the government of the United States, before receiving such notice from Mexico, should obtain intelligence through any other channel of the existence of Mexican captives within its territory, it will proceed forthwith to effect their release and deliver to the Mexican agent as above stipulated. For the purpose of giving to these stipulations the fullest possible efficacy, thereby affording the security and redress demanded by their true spirit and intent, the government of the United States will now and hereafter pass without unnecessary delay, and always vigilantly enforce such laws as the nature of the subject may require. And finally, the sacredness of this obligation shall never be lost sight of by the said government when providing for the removal of the Indians from any portion of the said territories, or for its being settled by citizens of the United States. But on the contrary, special care shall then be taken not to place its Indian occupants under the necessity of seeking new homes by committing those evasions which the United States have solemnly obliged themselves to restrain. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I'm not really seeing the stolen land. I'm seeing an actual agreement between two countries. So anyway, I'll talk to y'all later.